Since last year, the climate around the country has been the same. RUTO must go. You know what else needs to go? The unnecessary attention we give politicians. We give so much airtime to politicians that you'd think they are the celebrities instead of the ones we already have. I think Kenya is the only country I've seen so far where politicians never fail to appear on entertainment gossip sites, even more than the entertainers. In this episode of The Raw Pod, we look at why our politicians seem to be the celebrities/entertainers and why we need a break from them for good. With that being said, welcome to The Raw Pod with me, Renee Were. Let's get real and raw. Just like everything else, the obsession with politicians, especially in Kenyan media, has its roots. Politicians started having a chokehold on us from the Nyayo era. If you're not aware, the word Nyayo isn't just the name of a stadium or an estate in Embakasi. It was a term used by the late President Moi to mean that he would follow in the leadership footsteps of former President Kenyatta. The man ruled for 24 good years, holding the record for the longest-serving Kenyan president. This man's presence was felt in every part of Kenyan society. I kid you not. School kids would literally be lined up by the roadside, waiting for him to pass by while singing praise songs about him, just for him to wave from inside his car. He was everywhere, let me just say. He was everything to everyone. Of course, the media wasn't left behind. There was a time in this country when every news segment would start with what Moi had been up to that day. Think of it as a day in the life of an influencer or someone recapping on their IG stories about how their day was. If you don't believe me, listen to this.
Na hii ni taarifa ya habari mkisomewa na Hamisi Temo. Kwanza ni muktasari. Rais Daniel Arap Moi leo katika ikulu ya Nairobi alitoa mchango wake binafsi wa shilingi $500,000 kusaidia walioathirika kwenye mkasa wa bomu uliotokea Ijumaa iliyopita. Na wakati huo huo, Rais Moi alipokea jumla ya shilingi $12,650,000 kutoka kwa watu na mashirika mbalimbali kusaidia hazina hiyo. Akiwashukuru kutokana na msaada wao wa ukarimu, Rais Moi alisema moyo wa kusaidia walioathirika kwenye mkasa huo ambao umeonyeshwa na Wakenya ni wa kuridhisha. Rais Moi alisema janga hilo la mlipuko wa bomu ni kitendo duni cha ugaidi wa kimataifa, akisema kwamba kitendo hicho cha kinyama hakipaswi kutumiwa kutatanisha sifa nzuri ya taifa hili. Kiongozi wa nchi pia alipokea msaada wa shilingi 300,000 kutoka kwa Vice Chancellors wote wa vyuo vikuu vya umma wakiongozwa na Profesa George Shiwani. Msaada mwingine wa shilingi 10,000 ulikabidhiwa rais na mkuu wa idara ya Presidential Press Service Bwana Lee Njiru. Habari zaidi zinasema kwamba viongozi wa ulimwengu wanaendelea kumpelekea risala za rambirambi Rais Moi, serikali na Wakenya kufuatia mlipuko wa bomu uliotokea Ijumaa iliyopita.
Moi was even known as Baba wa Taifa, and he made sure that he was present in every part of Kenyans' lives to the point where songs were written about him. This obsession with one man set the tone for how politicians would later be treated in media and the society at large. So after Moi retired from power, it ushered in a new era of politician coverage. The media was free to criticize politicians, including the president. This was during the Kibaki era when politicians mainly appeared in the news and on talk shows to discuss politics. But then a small shift happened, and I link it back to around the time the Churchill show began. So by now you can tell that I really don't like the guy. And if you've been following this podcast from day one, the very first episode, Churchill was the main character. So in the very first episode of this podcast. The episode was about how Churchill's show has run its course and is no longer funny. Go stream it, by the way. I mentioned that one of the ways I researched for the episode was going back and watching every Churchill show episode I could find from the beginning. And one thing I noticed is that as the show progressed, Churchill began featuring politicians and government officials as guests on his show. I remember political figures like Uhuru, the former cabinet secretary for tourism, Najib Balala, Raila, and even the current president making guest appearances. When they were guests, the focus was away from politics and more on their personal life. Because if you remember, in the early episodes of Churchill, he would feature guests and then ask them about their life. So they'd talk about their life story, from where they started, how they got into politics. It was mostly very personal, less about their jobs and more about where they started. So the guests would talk about where they started and how they got here, the journey, how it had been. And then at some point, the conversation would stop and Churchill would surprise them by playing a slideshow of their images from, say, the time they were born to their early childhood, when they were teenagers, when they were young adults, when they were first parents, if they're parents, when they got their first kids. Yeah, and the audience would really like this stuff. And I believe that this is one of the things that made the show popular. We got to see these grand government figures be normal human beings like us, even if it was just for a few minutes. Remember, this was a few years before the internet and social media, so access to prominent figures was almost non-existent. And this was a big deal at the time. Getting politicians to appear on a show that wasn't news was no small thing. So I think it's safe to say that this kickstarted the obsession with politicians' lives, their personal lives, and besides politics. Because after this, other mainstream media channels started producing shows that focused on the other side of politicians' lives that the public never got to see. I think they saw how successful Churchill was with bringing on political guests on his show and how people enjoyed it. And they were like, you know what? We're going to copy that word for word, bar for bar. I'm talking about shows like Newsmakers and Strength of a Woman, which both aired on Citizen TV. If you don't recall, Newsmakers was a news segment that gave us a glimpse into the lives of prominent public figures. So it would not only focus on their achievements, but also their personal and home life. Strength of a Woman also had the same format as Newsmakers, but the only difference was that it focused on female public figures. The interviews mostly took place in the homes of the public figures, and this helped to add a very personal touch for the viewers. There's something very relatable about seeing a politician being interviewed in their home, talking about their past and their life as a regular person. You get to feel like you're almost the same, even though they're in a different economic class and social class from you. But the way they'd welcome the journalists into their homes, like you would a visitor into your own home, and serve them tea, show them around. It felt like we were there along with the journalists and we were also part of the conversation. These two shows perfected showing us the ordinary and human side of politicians, even those who are charged with war crimes. Mind you, this was around 2009 to the early 2010s when TV was still very relevant and Citizen TV was at this time the biggest primetime TV channel. So many people were tuning into these shows. Then came the digital era, and politicians migrated online and media houses followed them there. And because the politicians knew that they would be given attention no matter what they did, they chased clout to the point where they began appearing on gossip and entertainment news sites like Kina Mpasho and whatnot, even more than the actual celebrities. So now we have a problem where people we elected into office to serve us are full of shenanigans that have absolutely nothing to do with what our taxes pay them to do. And this is a problem that I've observed for a while. Politicians in Kenya shape the celebrity culture and the overall culture by being at the center of every conversation. We make them control every narrative of our lives. And it shouldn't be like that. They already have infiltrated the entertainment space. They are the ones we talk about more than even we do our entertainers. Mind you, these people serve a completely different purpose from what our celebrities serve. Our celebrities are there to entertain. But now we have a problem where the politicians are the ones doing the entertaining. So who's going to do the legislation? Whether it's church, they're there in church. They've infiltrated our churches. They go there, they talk politics, things that have absolutely nothing to do with the congregation. Whether it's our funerals, our weddings, they are again there with their politics, talking about what they've done or what they're going to do or their political enemies. They're literally in every topic. I don't think there's just a point where we as regular Kenyans drive the conversations without politicians finding their way in and driving the discourse and the culture. And it's really just, it's annoying. But you know what? It's not entirely their fault. Part of it is the media's fault for constantly pushing these politicians into our faces. And part of it is also our fault for constantly giving our time and energy to these politicians who really don't deserve it. The only time we should be giving these people attention is when they are telling us what they plan to do and when they actually do what they keep talking about. Otherwise, we should not be giving these people attention to that extent. I kid you not, this is the only country I've seen where we know the politicians, we know almost all politicians by name. Not for their work, not because they are these distinguished leaders, not because they are leaders who do the right thing and do what we elected them to do, but because they are full of childishness, they're full of games, they're full of drama and chaos that has nothing to do with legislation, that has nothing to do with good leadership. I've never seen other countries put so much focus the way we do on politicians. And it's really weird that they have such a huge following on social media and that they are the ones that are featured on all these gossip news sites about what they've done, about their nudes being leaked. Can you imagine a whole leader's nudes being leaked? Because that has actually happened. Can you imagine a whole leader being caught because they were drunk driving or just doing very immature things that they have no business doing? And I'm not even asking them to be perfect. I'm just asking them to style up and do the work that we elected them to do. And I'm asking you who's listening to this to stop giving them attention that they do not absolutely deserve. Only give them your attention when it's benefiting you, when it's time for things that benefit you, like this time during the financial bill where they all voted yes to things that directly impact our lives. Otherwise, you have no business following these people on social media. You have no business liking their posts. You have no business commenting under their posts. You have no business giving them attention for anything that is not related to the work we elected them to do. All this other stuff, their personal life, what cars they're driving, which is on our tab, by the way, ni sisi tunalipia hizo gari, the houses they live in, we have no business knowing all that at all. So you might be wondering, what's the way forward? It's very simple, and I think I've mentioned it. We need to collectively deplatform politicians. What do I mean by this? Stop giving them airtime. Stop giving them a platform for nonsense, because we elected these people to work in our best interests, not to entertain us. We have Kina Sauti Sol for that. We have Charisma for that. And they're doing a very great job. So why don't we let the politicians do the job that we elected them to do? If you're listening to this, go and follow that politician. Don't invite them to your function. Snatch that microphone away from their hands when they start speaking at the altar. Ignore them when they visit your area. Do everything you can to stop giving them attention. Because at the end of the day, these people have only one job: to represent our interests. And so far, so good or not so good, they are not doing a very good job. And one of the reasons why is because we keep paying attention to the wrong aspects of their lives. And this was just a quick little episode to remind us to focus and to stay on course and to stop giving politicians all our time and energy. I'd rather we even did that to the celebrities. At least they give us good songs. These ones are doing nothing. And we should give them nothing because they give us nothing. But anyway, thank you so much for listening to this quick episode. I just want to remind you to follow the ROPod on all our socials at the ROPod. Share this episode. Don't forget to like it. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to leave your comments. I always love to know what you're thinking. And also, don't be shy to share suggestions for what you'd like me to talk about next. Stay tuned for the next episode, and let's get real and raw right here on the ROPod with me, Renee Were.